This video is for Zen Alex, and in just a minute, I'm going to be scrolling through and showing you 8 posts that are affiliated with this thread that he had started on January 22nd, titled, "What Could Be Causing Sudden Exercise Intolerance?" And we are not only going to get to the bottom of that, but a number of different other health problems, just some signs and symptoms that Alex has had to contend with the consequences of as a former vegan of the past 8 years. So I'm going to be laying out a map and just sharing some really extensive notes that I actually took after a really long-winded conversation with my former mentor of the past 8-9 years, now my housemate and best friend, Luke. I took some really extensive notes from this conversation that I had, and I formulated 5 action steps that I'm going to be sharing that will just take you to the other side of struggle, just so you can experience serenity again. You should be able to sit, be mindful, be present, be at ease with yourself. And that's my greatest wish. And I feel really honored today. I've never been so excited to shoot a video as right now. I feel uniquely positioned in a situation where I'm actually able to not dispense a drug like I did for half of a decade as a consultant pharmacist, but I can dispense advice, the same advice that I would want anybody to have. Like really specific, pragmatic advice to effectively just take you by the hand and walk past the smoking wreckage. The same advice, the same discourse that I wish someone would have had with me when I was 15 years old and having to suffer with the consequences of a really rare chronic inflammatory disease called eosinophilic esophagitis that literally just made it difficult to swallow food. Something I wouldn't wish on anybody, even my worst enemy. So we'll delve into the details of these notes and those action items, as well as the 3 specific things that I see wrong with your current physiology. But what I'm gonna do right now is just read through just to provide some backstory of just what's been going on, and I'll offer a little bit of narration as we go along here. So on January 22nd, Zen Alex says, "I don't feel fatigued after exercise, but I feel lightheaded during and after, and get rushes of depression, tightness around my body, restlessness, and higher anxiety. This isn't even after high intensity specifically, even just walking does it for me. It's been this way for 4 months. I've had blood tests done, no anemia, thyroid appears to be fine, HbA1c, that's glycated hemoglobin, seems to be fine, no hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, B12, D, iron, all fine. Any ideas?" Zen Alex the following day on January 23rd posts a screenshot of his DHA sulfate level as well as cortisol. Both appear to be in reference range. LFC Charlie 4 comes in and says, "Are you vegan, perchance?" The plot thickens. Zen Alex comes back and he says, "Yes, why?" And then a week later, so I'm not a super active member of this forum, but unfortunately it took 1 week later. No one had responded, unfortunately, and Zen Alex says, "This sucks, dudes. If I cannot resolve this, then I am not staying alive. I cannot go out and do any real exercise. I miss hiking so much." And this is, whenever I had read this, it looks like this past Saturday I had posted, I'm like, man, somebody's got to help this lad land the plane. Somebody has just got to help him foresee the proverbial iceberg that ultimately leads to the demise of the Titanic and just like throw him a line that he can just grab onto and let's just reel him into the shoreline, take him to the promised land. Whew. So I come in and I say, whoa, let's hit the pause button and regroup, bro. What you are experiencing, I can assure you, is temporary, so hang in there, my friend. Physiology is fixable with the proper inputs. Can you tell me more about your diet being as granular as possible so I can better deduce the potential for specific micronutrient deficiencies that you have yet to be tested for? The more detail, the better, i.e. the exact quantities, for how long you have been eating this way, and in the context of what supplementation. Again, being as specific as possible. Basically, just give me as many pieces of the puzzle as possible, and I'll do my best to assemble that which remains, and by extension, offer you precise, practical advice to become whole again. So, Zen Alex, it looks like this was 16 hours ago. I'm making this video as quickly as possible as I can for you, man. I want to make you whole again. Sorry for the bulk post, I won't rush you. But I want to make you whole. For a response, I don't want your happiness to be spoiled by my sadness. No worries, bro. Like, the more details, the better. When you are disheveled, when you are in a state of dismay, somebody's got to help you, man. Somebody who is in a more resourceful state needs to help you. When I was 15 years old, when I was frankly 20 years old, it took me over half of a decade to get to the bottom of this and to find my mentor and now friend and housemate, as aforementioned, Luke, who helped devise this plan that I'm going to be spelling out for you in really specific, granular detail. I wasn't in a resourceful state at that point, and I just wish I would have had a mentor, maybe a coach, even a parent had this knowledge, or frankly, better yet, a doctor, just have the information, have the map to point me to the promised land. And that's what I'm exceptionally grateful to have the opportunity to give you right now. And I just want to thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's precisely your open-mindedness that I'm making this video. I can see the fighting spirit within you, man. I can see the Jason Jr. within you, a kid who is just a little bit beat down, kicked into the dirt of life by the boot of life, and somebody who just needed some sort of unfair advantage, some sort of asymmetric advantage to fight back, to take his life back. I'm so excited for you and where this video is ultimately going to take you. I've never been so excited to make a YouTube video in my life. I love you, man. I was vegan for 8 years up until recently. I was literally, by the way, like vibrating as I'm like walking down here from my apartment to shoot this video. So excited for you, man. Because this process is replicable, and that's why. It's because this isn't some mystery. This is literally physiology, and there is a rhyme or a reason, and I will spell that all out for you, man. I was vegan for 8 years up until recently. I ate a very healthy diet. To be fair, man, I'm gonna put that in air quotes, healthy diet, because I suspect there may be certain pieces of the puzzle that you may be missing. Haven't drank alcohol regularly, amazing. That shit is hepatotoxic, not good for your liver, no bueno. Regularly for around 7.5 to 8 years. No cigarettes, amazing. Those induce oxidative stress. No drugs, minimal junk, amazing. I was eating mostly whole foods. I used chronometer.com to make sure I was meeting as much of the RDA as possible for everything. Oh man, okay, so I love these databases, but you gotta be careful because those databases will disseminate relative to, here's the analogy that I would make. Okay, they will disseminate the values assuming that you are actually absorbing all of them. So the analogy that I would give is, let's say you had a business that was making $1 million in gross revenue per year, but then you had $990,000 in overhead expenses. Your net profit would only be $10,000, literally 100x, 2 orders of magnitude less than the amount that you grossed. What you care about is your net income, not your gross revenue. And so you might be hitting the RDA of iron, for example, from your plant-based diet, but you're not actually absorbing enough to hit the RDA, and you're certainly not getting enough heme iron to actually assimilate, to use properly the proper form of iron to ensure that you don't become anemic. And there are myriad other examples than just iron, the plant-based form versus heme iron found in animal-based foods. So at the end of the day, what you care about is your net profit and not the gross revenue. And that's why you have to be careful in the context of a plant-based diet where there are literally hundreds of anti-nutrients. The one that has the most pronounced impact being phytic acid, just in terms of the magnitude of effect and the degree of inhibition of the absorption of the concurrent nutrients, what you are eating concurrently. Phytic acid is the one you have to be the most mindful of, but just be aware that while useful, these databases aren't actually telling you the net profit, they're telling you the gross revenue. I stopped being vegan about 10 days ago. Good, that's a good step in the right direction. Just to see if it will make a difference. I've been eating fish, chicken, and milk, but I'm still mostly vegan. Yes, it'll make a massive difference, my friend. Just wait. I'm really excited for you. My blood tests are showing mostly everything fine, nothing out of range except I was slightly low HDL cholesterol and slightly high MPV platelets. But the NHS doctor and private doctor who did the test said nothing was of any concern for them. And that is a great disservice to you, my friend, because if doctors see something in the reference range, they are trained to, in a very binary black and white granular fashion, think in reference range, good, out of reference range, bad. And the problem with that is that I'm not treating metrics. I'm looking at the metrics and I'm using those as proxies, but I'm treating you as the man. I'm treating the man and not the metric. I'm not going by government issued and sponsored treatment algorithms that ultimately lead back to the prescription of, of a statin to just artificially lower your cholesterol. I'm not following that algorithm. Luke and I are taking all of the pieces of the puzzle, taking into account your symptoms, your diet, nutrition, everything, and we're actually figuring out what the missing pieces are. And we're not just saying, oh, in reference range, good, out of reference range, bad, because those reference ranges are actually built off of population-based data. And effectively, those are ever-changing, ever-shifting goalposts. In other words, you don't want to compare your lab values to the 50th percentile, which effectively is what these reference ranges are built around, with a 95% confidence interval. You've heard it before. The bell curve, the whole shebang. The problem is that in an increasingly fat, sick, and infertile population, your lab results are being compared to an increasingly unhealthy 50th percentile. I want to compare you to what's optimal, and that's stagnant. It's not transient. I was put on 24-hour BP blood pressure monitor and ECGs, electrocardiograms. I've been getting lightheaded, and any amount of exercise makes me feel depressed, tightness around my body. I've also had stomach issues on and off for 2 to 3 months. And notice I had black in my poop recently. I think I may have developed a mild B12 deficiency because my B12 levels, although within normal ranges, were borderline with 292 nanograms per liter or picograms per milliliter. Those are equivalent for serum, and 44 picomoles per liter for active, which is very low normal. My symptoms seem to match with low B12 and related problems like POTS, although I'm not sure. All I know is any amount of physical activity, my body seems to reject it. I made sure it's not just because I'm alone with my thoughts on walks, because when I meditate, it calms. Oh no, my friend. This is definitely a physiological problem and necessitates a physiological solution. I drove out to an isolated hiking spot, felt fine in the car, felt fine when I got out of the car, but after a few minutes of walking, the beauty disappears. Then I get tightness around the body, irritability, I feel depressed. Yeah, I'm sorry, man. I love meditating too, by the way. I do it every morning. And there is something to be said about getting present to the moment and seeing the beauty in everything in life and realizing that what you resist will persist. But the problem is that you can't play God, in the sense that like, if you have a broken biology, if you have a broken body, there's no degree of meditation that will actually correct that. And if you want to have an optimized, at the endocrinological level, you want to have an optimized physiological experience of life, as I'm sure we all do. I mean, if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? We love to pedestalize self-actualization, but self-actualization is merely predicated upon that which precedes it within the pyramid. And it's your physiology that is effectively the base, it's the base foundation, it's the base pillar of the self-actualization that you ultimately want to arrive at. Last time I went for a hike, I noticed I still have the energy to do it, but I got a mild anxiety attack. We're definitely gonna fix that. My doc said that sometimes my BP, my blood pressure, is going quite low, although she said it could be because I'm genuinely healthy, maybe. I notice it drops to low 90s over 60, so 90 systolic, 60 diastolic. Yeah, that's a bit low, my friend, and especially in the context of an orthostatic hypotension. So if you find that your numbers are actually dropping subsequent to assuming a standing from a supine position, right? Like when you're getting up, if you notice that you're having a tachycardic response, your heart rate is going up in response to a depressed blood pressure, that is definitely not normal. I would typically like to see more so around 110 over 70. I'm wearing an Actia, by the way. This is it's like a continuous blood pressure monitor. I'll share some of the results with you on screen just so you can see what my typical pressures tend to run. Not saying you have to invest in something like this. I actually wouldn't. I don't think it's a great ROI for where you're at right now. But just to say that I think your blood pressure probably is a little bit too low. I'm having an MMA test. This is a more sensitive and specific measure for assessing whether or not somebody is vitamin B12 deficient. Hopefully that comes back with answers. I try not to believe my imagination and it's catastrophizing, but it's been 5 months and I haven't been able to resolve the issue. I suppose it's because the main way I dealt with my depression and anxiety was hiking. Hiking brought me to Zen, and now I cannot do that anymore. Even just walking for a short while makes me feel bad, although I refuse to remain sedentary because that is not healthy. That is true, my friend. Sedentary, being sedentary, sitting is basically the new smoking. But one thing I would forewarn is that exercise on top of a broken biology is actually a recipe for disaster and is going to induce more oxidative stress. Basically, we want to fix your physiology first before we optimize your endocrinology with things like weightlifting and hiking, for example. Being more active is good, but only if you have a really good foundation of physiology first. If anyone wants me to send them my blood tests, I can do so in full. I'm awaiting a few other tests here that he mentions, including vitamin D, B12, folate, ferritin, magnesium, zinc, copper, sodium, calcium, and calculated corrected calcium, albumin, testosterone, SHTB, so that's sex hormone binding globulin, and calculated free testosterone. So that is the 8th and final post of this thread that he had started back on January 22nd. So now let's delve into some of these notes that I've taken for you, and let's start to take you back to the promised land, man. Let's just pave a highway to take back your health. So some of those tests are great, by the way, and I'm not sure if you'll be watching this video in time, but I don't think a lot of these are necessary for you. Like folate, I've never met a vegan that's folate deficient. Vitamin B12, I can guarantee you're already deficient. Ferritin would be a good one, magnesium, zinc, copper, all of these others are good, but folate and B12, these are pretty cheap tests anyway, so you don't necessarily have to skip out on those. It would be interesting to see. But that being said, there are 3 major problems that we've got to address. I will list these problems and then I'll expound upon these problems and offer you 5 action items to today start to correct them. So the 3 primary problems, as I see it, is a vitamin B12 deficiency, a DHA deficiency, and then a really poor ratio of zinc to copper. So let's talk about each of these. Vitamin B12 deficiency. So you mentioned that your level was 292 picograms per liter. That is guaranteed deficient. And just because your doctor is saying that it's within the reference range, it is definitely not normal and it's definitely suboptimal any way you slice it. I like to see people around 1200 to 1500 to be truly optimal. So having an intolerance to exercise is frankly a hallmark of a vitamin B12 deficiency, and I can guarantee that you are deficient right now, and long-term vegan diets are not only notorious, but are inevitably going to induce a vitamin B12 deficiency unless, for example, you happen to be supplementing with it. The second thing is a DHA deficiency. Docosahexaenoic acid is absolutely integral for brain health. And I can guarantee you, if you're a little bit anxious right now, if you're uptight, if you don't know what's wrong with you, and you're kind of like beating yourself over the head and you're like, what is wrong with me? Like, I just can't figure it out. Like, for example, me, I used to have food that I could barely swallow, and I'm like, what is wrong with me? Like, am I just not swallowing my food properly? Like, am I just doing something really dumb? And the truth is that you're actually not. Like, there's nothing inherently wrong with you in terms of the outputs relative to the inputs. It's just that you're not having the right inputs right now. And for the past 8 years, ostensibly, you haven't had a direct source of DHA. Now, the only way that you would have been able to get this is no fault of your own, is by conversion from ALA, alpha-linolenic acid. This is the parent omega-3 18-carbon polyunsaturated fat, through catalyzed conversion from the enzyme called delta-5 desaturase, through a lot of different intermediary steps, can actually give you a source of DHA. but it's just such a convoluted conversion. You have to go through things like EPA, eicosapentaenoic acid, DPA, that's docosahexaenoic acid, and then DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, that the best way to actually resolve this problem is to have a direct source of DHA, for example, through consuming seafood. I've got a more elegant solution for you that I will delineate as part of the 5 action items, but for now you are at least getting DHA ostensibly through seafood. The one issue I would caveat is that a lot of fish is actually higher in shorter chain fatty acids, such as tuna. So if you are going to go the seafood route, then consuming salmon is going to be the ideal way to get more of the longer chain fatty acids. The importance of DHA, by the way, can be appreciated upon considering the ability for women, just how disproportionately good they are at converting the ALA into DHA relative to men. So this is such an integral part of brain health, DHA, docosahexaenoic acid, that women, for reasons of offering this to their developing fetus, are exceptionally good at, through this backdoor conversion, arriving at DHA in the case of them not having enough in their diet. But I can guarantee you right now, any anxiety that you've been experiencing, mental depression, just not feeling right mentally, it's either the second problem, a DHA deficiency, or it's the third problem, which is going to be a poor ratio of zinc to copper. Now, a really good ratio, honestly, not just for immune function, but for your mental health, is going to be 20-1. But the truth is that vegans, I've seen up to as poor of a ratio of not only 20-1, but the ratio would be 1-2 zinc to copper. So literally having twice as much copper as zinc. And there's a couple of fundamental reasons why that is. It's just the fact that, first and foremost, plant foods are disproportionately high in copper relative to zinc. But then it's also the fact that there are hundreds of anti-nutrients in plant-based foods, phytic acid being the most noteworthy of which are disproportionately inhibiting the uptake of zinc relative to copper. And the truth is that this could absolutely be causing some of your mental problems as well. In fact, people, not saying that you've experienced this, that are prone to, for example, schizophrenic breaks from reality, a high copper to zinc ratio can absolutely give rise to that. And again, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I'm sure you wouldn't either. But given these 3 problems, there are 5 action items that I've arrived at. So given the B12 deficiency, given the low zinc to copper intake, given the DHA deficiency, the 5 steps that I would offer you is we have to put food first. And you may have resistance to this, but the truth is that the number one thing you could do right now is to add beef into your diet. I know you had mentioned the fish, the chicken, the eggs, and the truth is that these have redeeming qualities in their own right, but none of these is a really good source of vitamin B12, as is beef. It sounds like you've been consuming milk. I would just reiterate the importance of that. That's like nature's multivitamin. There's a plethora of micronutrients that you're going to be satisfying by consuming milk. And I think that's incredible. I would try to consume at least a liter per day. That's going to be a long way in terms of patching a lot of potential micronutrient deficiencies that you currently have, or levels that are simply suboptimal. So step number 1 is eating beef. I hope you don't have resistance to that. I will issue an alternative just to preempt any resistance that you may have to that by saying that you could get a chelated zinc supplement, and you'd want to look for something that is about 22 milligrams, and you could take that once a day. So correcting for zinc is the first thing, ideally by consuming beef. Second thing is supplementing DHA. I'm going to show you right now the exact supplement that I use, because the truth is that a lot of people use just these run-of-the-mill, bottom-of-the-shelf fish oil supplements, the conventional ratio being 180 milligrams of EPA to 120 milligrams of DHA. You're going to be far better served by consuming something that has at least a 2-to-1 ratio of DHA to EPA. My supplement has a 10-to-1 ratio of DHA to EPA, and that's going to help you in a number of ways. most people getting too much EPA relative to DHA, that's going to put a dampener on their ability to recover, for their muscles to actually recover from hiking, for example. I love hiking, man. Like, that's actually something that brought my sister and I a lot closer together, something we've been doing over the past few years. And I'm really grateful for those experiences. And I'm also grateful for the fact that I've been able to recover not only from hiking tall mountains with my sister, but also from like multi-hour bouts, like really high volume training sessions that most people wouldn't be able to recover from. But because of the nutrition that I consume, because of the high DHA to EPA ratio, I'm able to recover from that as a natural lifter without any problems. So I recommend DHA over, I know you've been consuming a lot of fish. If you do want to continue eating fish, opt for salmon. But the truth is that modern seafood is plagued by, not least of which, PFAs, polyfluoroalkyl substances, and also toxic heavy metals that you don't really want to contend with the consequences of. Step number 3 is, man, I know this is going to be tough for you, but minimizing plant-based foods, especially soy. This is very estrogenic, really rich in isoflavones, which have shown to be good for, menopausal women who are suffering from having a deficiency of estrogen, for example. These soy-based foods are incredibly estrogenic, and they're not something that you want to be consuming. You know, you want to have optimized endocrinology, man. You want to have a good testosterone to estrogen ratio, and you just want to feel like you can take life, take the proverbial bull of life by the balls and just have a good time. And so if you can, minimizing plant-based foods is really going to go a long way, not just for your endocrinology, but also for really allowing the micronutrient-rich foods in your diet, the meat, the milk, the eggs, to really shine, allowing those to step into the light that gives them life, so to speak, allowing you to increase your net profit relative to your gross income, relative to your gross intake. Step number 4. Steps number 4 and 5, frankly, are things that we haven't talked about yet in this video, but these are going to go an incredibly long way because, you've been consuming probably a lot of magnesium, but maybe not the most bioavailable forms. So I would recommend getting 400, if you can afford this, milligrams of magnesium into your diet. I'll show you the exact supplement that I use. I take 2 of these tablets twice a day with each of my meals. So that's 400 milligrams of elemental magnesium from magnesium bisglycinate chelate to ensure that I'm actually absorbing the entirety of that elemental magnesium. Magnesium catalyzes myriad, just countless thousands of reactions in the body, and I can almost guarantee that you would be behooved by increasing your intake. Now, step number 5 is to get a source of vitamin D3. Without knowing what your 125 hydroxy level is, it sounds like that was one of the tests that you're going to get done. Without knowing what that level is, which, by the way, I would want you north of 50, a 5,000 IU, at least in the interim, vitamin D3, that's cholecalciferol supplement, would really go a long way. There is a VDR, a vitamin D receptor, in virtually every single cell in your body. And it follows then that vitamin D could more aptly be characterized as a hormone than a conventional vitamin. So if you're not getting a lot of sunlight, depending on which latitude you live at, for example, you're not going to be getting enough UV exposure to actually make enough endogenously, and that's why I would recommend exogenous supplementation, 5,000 IU being the best starting point. So those are the 3 problems that you are currently contending with, and the 5 steps that are going to most expeditiously take you from where you are now to the other side of struggle so that you can experience serenity again, which not only I want for you, but you want for yourself. You want to be able to step into the light that gives you life. You want to take back your health. You want to feel like $1 million. You want to put on your proverbial oxygen mask first so you can more precisely position yourself to be of service to other people so that you can self-actualize and get the most juice out of the squeeze of this life. I love you very much, my friend. I have high hopes for you. Again, I wouldn't have made this video unless I saw the same fighting spirit in you as I had in my younger 15 to 20 plus year old self. I have high hopes for you. If you have any questions, drop a comment down below. I'm more than happy to expound upon any of the advice given in this video and to address any concerns that you might have. I love you very much, my friend. And as always, until next time, find your freedom. Peace.